I wanna be your number one. You're fighting hard, but I'm moving on. I wanna be your number
Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the fourth branch program, the pace for science. Welcome. Today we continue the conversation about race to 2020, in which candidates in the Democrat Party are fighting to become the nominee. We will also take a look at why there has been a record deficit of leadership in the Republican Party, and what does that mean for the country. That and much more after an announcement. I am MD, host of the fourth branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The fourth branch project is not associated with any political party, and we at the fourth branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. We begin today by asking this question. How do you save a drowning man who believes he is a professional swimmer? When we asked that question the first time, a number of people gave a few suggestions. You knock the individual in the head unconscious, and you might just be able to save that individual's life. Now, regardless of whether that individual is indeed a professional swimmer, if one is drowning, there is no doubt that you would need some help. Either you get a cramp, you cannot swim, or whatever else is going on. A pen will prevent you from saving your own life. Here in the United States, a comparable predicament has plagued the country. You're crisscrossing the country and you try to figure out what's going on, you will find that Republicans overwhelmingly think everything is just fine. There is a great president, the economy is great, unemployment is low. What could be better. You talk to Democrats, it is a very different picture. So who is right? Because both sides cannot be right. Well, it so happened that we do have the answer to that question, and we will try to address it today. In the spirit of featuring a candidate, a Democrat candidate for vying for the office of the presidency, we will feature today Kirsten Gillibrand, who is a senator. We will talk more about her in a minute. She is an interesting personality. But before we do that, we will try to tackle this topic we're talking about: record deficit of leadership in the Republican Party. Now, most Republicans, quote-unquote leaders, would want to ignore, shrug off, quip, or simply think it's those damn liberals who don't know what they're talking about. But whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, it is impossible not to notice that the country has been in a state of turmoil, in a state of chaos since the presidency of Donald Trump. Now, it is very easy to point fingers to Donald Trump because obviously he is the new member, he is the oddball. So is he not responsible for the state of affairs, for the state of chaos? But the other question we can try to address, so what? The country is in a state of chaos, and once Donald Trump exits, then we'll just fix everything back to normal, right? Today, the United States of America, standing in the world, is very low. The lowest it has been pretty much since the existence of the Republic. Is that normal? Of course not. But which brings me to the question: why is there a record deficit of leadership in the Republican Party? We believe that the fourth branch, after much research, after looking at so many different aspects of the state of chaos in the country, we believe we have figured out what's behind the problem. We will expose that, at least we'll try to debate that and give you the perspective of what you think that is. And hopefully sharing those tidbits of information may help you at least move the conversation forward and quite possibly solve the problem in the process. When we come back. Hi, I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program. War on Blacks is a topic added to the Fourth Branch programming in order to discuss the intricacies, the complexities of race relation in America. The goal is threefold. 1. Bring attention to the various forms of prejudice, discrimination, and racism in the country. 2. To expose the undeniable presence of such in every aspect of life and every corner of our society. 3. To extricate us all from the ignorance, the indifference, or the complicity. The ultimate objective is to make the discussions of those issues, racism, prejudice, discrimination, a normal part of our lives. Then, and only then, will we as a society be able to eradicate the problem. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Abraham Joshua Heschel exclaimed, "Racism is man's gravest threat to man, the maximum of hatred for the minimum of reason." Join me in the journey to restore equality. Or would you please get out of the way? Thank you. How do you save a drowning man who believes he's a professional swimmer? Being human notwithstanding, all major news networks, Fox is not considered one of them, have always strived to be objective. Their objectivity, however, was highly misplaced in the 2016 presidential election. They scrutinized every aspect of Hillary Clinton's plan, every detail, if she were elected. But they simply took Donald Trump's words that he had a plan. Well, that aside, the news networks have tried really hard to increase viewership, an effort which seems hopeless and at times disheartening. Fox was built on shock and awe, on sensationalism, has never cared about objectivity, never strived for that. The culture at Fox was set by the late CEO Roger Ailes, who promoted the idea that Fox network is in the business of making money. News is secondary. So the network has captivated an audience yearning for any info which appeals to emotion, fear, anger, frustration, resentment. So to lie to its audience, packaged in the form of news, makes good business sense at Fox. And Roger was right. Fox has been the top in broadcasting for well over a decade now. How can any network compete with Fox? How can any network compete? No no one with journalistic ethics would want to stoop to Fox level. There's the dilemma: to lure Fox's audience to real news, to accurate info, without sensationalism. It is a very difficult task. So it is natural that Republicans in general always steer towards Fox to talk to the GOP constituent to make a point, any point, however false, without being challenged. There lies the danger for our democracy. You see, the United States is now comprised of a political party, the Republican Party, which has strayed so far away of reality that its leaders scramble to create an environment specifically for the constituent, for them to feel welcome, instead of educating them and guiding them back to reality. It is nothing new. It didn't begin with Donald Trump. Obviously, he has exacerbated the situation. This problem began more than a century ago, which time we've encountered Republican leaders, legislators who have opposed everything and anything which would benefit their constituent, let alone the country. And yet, the GOP constituent continue to gyrate around the GOP hub as if there is no alternative. I captured this very phenomenon in a series of articles written in 2014 titled "Lie to Me." You see, ignorance is dangerous, it is expensive, it is detrimental to a nation, to its democracy. But Republican leaders want to keep it that way because the ignorance of their constituent is a guarantee for their position in Washington. They don't have any incentive to educate their constituent. There lies the danger of our democracy. JFK said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of all. There is no doubt. Everything here in the United States is framed as if it's politics. We don't have to go far. Take example of the Mueller's investigation, in which Republicans in one corner makes all kind of argument against those who are trying to find the holes in our national security. Whatever happened to nationalism? Whatever happened to loyalty to the country? All those individuals are not loyal to the country. At least their behavior says they are not. Most Republican leaders, senators, congressmen behind the scene, they confess that this is not the way that the framers of the Constitution intended for the country to run. And yet, publicly, they continue to lie, they continue to advance the same falsehoods that the Trump administration put out there. The reason is really very simple. They simply do not care about what happened to the country long term, because as long as they get to keep their job, as long as they get to stay in power, them be the country, them be the Constitution. And it works for them because their constituents seems to feel the same way. In fact, it's kind of a vicious cycle or circle, because the constituent wants at all costs to keep things going the way that they are going. despite screaming from all corners, all angles of the country, that the country is actually heading the wrong direction. This is not also one individual or a small group of individuals. The reverberations of that scream goes across the world. So why elected official, individual who took an oath to uphold the Constitution, to defend national security of the country, why do they abandon that, pretending that everything is okay? We bring you this serious record deficit of leadership in the Republican Party. It is not something to scoff at. It's not something to shrug off or to simply ignore and say, well, it's a damn liberal talking. If you're talking about me, you so happen not to get it right. I'm not a damn liberal. I'm not a liberal at all. I am a citizen of the United States who is very concerned about the direction the country is going. And it is not one of those times in which everybody is talking the country going the wrong direction just because you do not like an individual. And for sake of information, let me repeat it here again. When Donald Trump bid for the presidency of the United States, I was the first and probably the only one who actually advocated and supported his candidacy. I wrote about that. I defending the fact that it was a good thing for the democracy in America. No, I'm not a damn liberal. I so happen to be able to see clearly that we as a country are heading in the wrong direction. And I was also clear-minded enough to say that Donald Trump is not worth the sacrifice of our nation. Yes, the nation was not built for an individual. Even George Washington, our first president, and an individual was very revered for his work. There was a guarantee that if he were to go the wrong way, the other way, the way that's not beneficial to the country, he too would have suffered the wrath of the remaining framers of our Constitution. Because loyalty is to the country, not to an individual, not to a party. And yet, we've seen across the board disloyalty to the country in the Republican Party. And every time this discussion is brought forth to another fellow Republican, it's always, how about what Democrat did? How about what Democrat said? How about what? This is a sure sign that the individual you are talking to already realized that yes, the country is going in the wrong direction, but want to bring a different topic to the conversation so as not to address the current crisis that the country is going through now. If you are drowning, and which is the state the country is in today, if you are drowning and someone is trying to save your life, do you think it's time for you to discuss what's going on where you at, instead of accepting being saved? And once you in unsafe ground, then you can have all sort of discussion that you want to have. At least that's what logical people would do. That's what people with common sense would do. You cannot be debating the way to be saved while you're drowning. So this is established. This is not a damn liberal asking, rather, what can be done to fix the problem? There is a record deficit of leadership in the Republican Party. You don't have to be looking for it. It's in display every day. So the question is, what can be done? We invite you to let us know how would you resolve this problem? What would you suggest? What should be done? What can be done? Let us know. Write to us and share your opinion about the state of turmoil in the country and what kind of solution should be brought to that problem.
After reading several books based on presidents and on Obama specifically, I found that they're typically partisan. The Obama legacy targets the heart of the issue by giving credit to the president where it's due, but definitely coming down hard on Obama on his bigger failures, like his handling of the Syrian crisis.
If you are in college, going to college, you are an educator, a faculty member, or someone with interest in government or politics, the Obama legacy is definitely a book to read.
My professor recommended the Obama legacy.
A friend actually recommended the Obama legacy.
I would highly recommend this book for anyone, whether for academic use or leisure reading.
I would recommend this book to anyone out there searching for an impartial and unbiased look into Barack Obama's tenure as president.
I would definitely recommend this book as a good read for both liberals and conservatives.
Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not of fairness. Our business, our only business, is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical of our very freedom. It depends on it. Considering that 2020 is right around the corner, well, not quite, but you understand. It seems almost as if it is right around the corner. The number of activities on the campaign trail, especially on the Democrat side, make it feel that way. And as such, we have been featuring a candidate per day here on the Fourth Branch program, give a sense of what the candidate background is and what that particular candidate stand for? What should you expect if that individual becomes the nominee for the Democrat Party and eventually take on Donald Trump, become the 46th president of the United States? Today, we will take a look at Kirsten Gillibrand. That is, of course, one of the many women vying for the office of the presidency in this presidential election cycle. What can we expect? We will show you in just a moment. So who is Kirsten Gillibrand? Now, whether you're a Democrat or you are a Republican, the 2020 presidential election should be very easy to cast a vote for the right individual. And I said easy. In 2016, I remember very clearly that I was screaming at the top of my lung for the constituent who were going to cast a vote to side with the United States instead of with the enemy of the United States. Before the 2016 fateful November 6th date, you may recall that by then there were already a lot of information about the fact that WikiLeaks Julian Assange was very much involved, very much meddling in the US presidential election. And everyone in the Republican Party, or most everyone I should say, constituent supporters, even including the candidate himself, encouraged that idea. I was completely baffled, flabbergasted even, that if those individuals were about to cast their vote, thought for 1 second they were American citizens, that should have given pause to them that you cannot possibly cast a vote for an individual who wants to lead the country and yet overtly asking an enemy to meddle in our internal affairs. There is no spinning of this information. No spinning at all, because it's either you're an American who wants to protect the integrity of our nation, the integrity of our institution, or you're not. You cannot spin it 1,000 ways. The argument that was being floated at that time was Hillary Clinton email needed to be found, and we resort to the enemy of the United States to do that. How comforting. And that's the argument Republican supporters of Donald Trump and Donald Trump himself were making. You see, ironically, people with decency don't do those kind of things. People who are American citizens don't do those kind of things. Now, most of those individuals, including the President of the United States, thought, hey, why not have someone who can give us an advantage? Why not take it? That entity happened to be a foreign government, foreign enemy. In 2000, and you'll see the contrast. In 2000, during the face-off between George W. Bush and Al Gore, Al Gore's campaign received a packet of information which had damaging information about George W. Bush. And that packet was sent by, nobody know exactly who sent the packet, but the minute they opened the packet, and of course the individual made certain that the top page clearly say what the packet was about. The minute that the Al Gore campaign read the top page and know that's what the package contained, they close it and they forward it to FBI. That's what American citizen, someone who vies for the Oval Office, should do. You should have some measure of decency. Now, he is someone who did not go and ask for someone to do something like that, but simply receive it in the mail. Now, they could have used it against George W. Bush. No, they did not do that. They call FBI and turn it over. By contrast, the candidate Donald Trump overtly welcomed a foreign entity to meddle in our internal affairs. And yet, those constituents, in the case of that I just mentioned of Al Gore, nobody knew about that until much later, because nothing was used. You could say that even if Al Gore were to want to use that information, maybe the information would have come out later. And yet the information came from within the United States of America. That doesn't mean it would have been okay. That's not the point. It still would have been bad. But Al Gore did not. But in 2016, we have a candidate who vied for the highest office in the land, inviting foreign entities to come and meddle in our internal affairs. And both the candidate and those who support him justify that. How about that for patriotism? So Republicans do not have an argument about patriotism because they squandered that. Not only they squandered that at that time, and they continue to do so even up to today. As of date, Donald Trump has had 5 secret meetings with Vladimir Putin. And we seem to think it's okay that the President of the United States keep having secret meetings with an enemy and nobody in his administration has any idea what they talk about. The Republican Party took 2 trips to Moscow, and as of date, nobody in the country knows exactly what they talked about. And strangely enough, during both trips, they made sure that Democrats were not invited. And here is the problem. Until now, every time that there is a delegation that's going to a foreign country, it's always Democrat and Republican. It doesn't matter who is in control of the houses. It's always Democrat and Republican until Donald Trump comes to office. And Republican, just in lockstep with him, they went to Moscow and they say no Democrat. Now, the framers of the Constitution did imagine that at some point we may have this type of problem. That's why they consider we the people as kind of a stopgap to prevent our country from going off rail. But what happened when you have the whole political party, not just the president, not just Congress, not just the Senate, but the whole political party, that's legislators and constituents? How do you solve that problem? And those are not speculation. Those are events that have happened since Donald Trump has been president of the United States. Some of those things happened right in broad daylight, where Donald Trump took Russian into the Oval Office. It was just him and the Russian news media, no American involved. So those are facts right under our nose, and yet the Republicans have many ways of spinning that and still think they are patriot. You ask any Republican, they still believe they are patriot. Patriotism is not a word to toss around. It's not a cover to go under. Patriotism is a lifestyle to adopt, to use, to live by. That's what patriotism is. In fact, a patriot would even lay his life or her life for his country, let alone let other country come and interfere with the system of democracy we have. As such, one could say that any candidate would be better than the current situation we have here. Any candidate, because anyone who is an American citizen who understands that, who understands the role, the importance of the presidency, would be better for the country than what we currently have. It's not a manner of speaking either. So as such, Kirsten Gillibrand is one such individual who wants to, well, who wants your vote, who wants you to know what she stands for. And if she managed to become the nominee for the Democrat Party, she wants you to vote for her as the 46th president of the United States. So who is she? Now, Kirsten Gillibrand is the current U.S. Senator from the state of New York. She was chief of the office in January of 2009. You may recall that Hillary Clinton was the senator. So when Hillary Clinton was tapped by Obama to become the Secretary of State, I believe Cuomo did use Kirsten Gillibrand as the senator to replace Hillary Clinton. Now, in 2010, there was a special election. Usually that's the way it goes. If a post in a state becomes vacant, the governor can appoint anyone that he or she feels is qualified for the job. But while they work towards a special election, so that's what Cuomo did, placed Kirsten as the senator to replace Hillary Clinton, and in 2010, Kirsten did win the special election. But before that, she represented the 20th district in the state of New York from 2007 to 2009 as a congresswoman. Kirsten was born she was born as Kirsten Elizabeth. She was born in Albany, New York in December of 1966. So she is, I believe, what, 52 years old? Kirsten has 2 children. She obtained a degree at Dartmouth College, a Bachelor of Arts, and she did continue her education by acquiring a Juris of Doctorate degree from the University of California in Los Angeles. Now, Kirsten did, you may recall that in 2000, Kirsten did practice law, and she did work on Hillary Clinton U.S. Senate campaign. If you recall, when Hillary was vying for the post, Kirsten Gillibrand did assist. But in 2006, of course, she took her experience, I guess, in politics, and she bid for the House of Representatives for the state. That's how she became the representative for the 20th congressional district of the state. I might as well add that the district that she represents actually is kind of a conservative district. It's in upstate New York. And she was also re-elected in 2008. Miss Gillibrand considers herself as a blue dog Democrat. But despite that position, you may recall that when Obama took over the presidency of the United States, there was a lot of conversation, a lot of activities going on in order to lift the country out of the recession it was under, and for that there was a package that was proposed called the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act of 2008. Wow, that's a mouthful for bailout. Well, Kirsten didn't go for that. She voted against that. Now, I said earlier that Governor Cuomo was the one that placed Kirsten Gillibrand as the senator, appointed Kirsten Gillibrand senator when Mrs. Clinton was appointed Secretary of State and had to leave the post. It wasn't Governor Cuomo, it was rather Governor David Patterson. So my apology for that. So Cuomo was not governor yet. That was David Patterson was governor then in New York. So that was David Patterson who appointed Kirsten Gillibrand to fill the Senate seat. Now, there is, of course, there are some politicians who are very well known in terms of name, in terms of what they've done, what they've accomplished. Kirsten is mostly known for, well, has become more better known rather, because she was at the forefront of the Me Too movement. She was very involved in that. She still is. She's been outspoken, she's been outspoken on sexual assault in the military, in particular, sexual harassment. She criticized Bill Clinton, and she was, you may recall, very instrumental in having Al Franken exposed from the Senate. You may recall that Al Franken did find himself in hot water when picture emerged that he was making gesture of grabbing a woman's breast while the woman was sleeping. He didn't touch the woman, but that was a lewd picture that Senator Kirsten Gillibrand found that was not palatable for a senator. So she led the movement and had Al Franken expelled from the Senate. She has been in that position as a senator, I believe, for almost 10 years now. If it's not more than 10 years. Well, she took over Senator Clinton post in 2009. Yeah, 10 years. It's been for 10 years now. As I mentioned, Kirsten is 52 years old. She was born in Albany, New York, and she had many different political positions. And as the next step in her political career, she explored the opportunity, the possibility rather, of the presidency of the United States. So after getting what I would suggest good feedback from an exploratory team about her chances, on March 17, Mrs. Clinton announced his candidacy for the presidency of the United States. Now, as it is with all other candidates, because each candidate that vies for the office of the presidency, although all the issues, all the social, political issues in the country would need to be addressed by whoever would become the next president, but each one of them has something that they consider really a big idea, like when they campaign. For instance, Bernie Sanders make all insurance for all is his thing. He's campaigning on that. If you remember, in 2016, he campaigned on free tuition for everyone. And since he has done that, a number of states have actually jumped into this very idea. New York, in fact, has implemented that people would go to college without paying a single penny. So by the time you graduate, you walk away, you don't have a burden of debt that follows you everywhere, and for you to have to pay for and you would never be able to achieve anything in life. So now Bernie Sanders come say Medicare for all, and it seems that Bernie is leading the pack, not only in terms of popularity, in terms of raising money, but also in terms of idea, because so far it seems that all other candidates, including Gillibrand, are on board with the idea of Medicare for all. Now, despite that, Gillibrand's big idea, in other words, consider that as the Mitt Romney repeal and replace on day one type of idea. If you recall, in 2012, Mitt Romney say that's what he would do on day one if he were to become president in 2012. So consider the big idea for Gillibrand is to require that companies adopt a universal paid parental leave policy. So that's really the big idea for Kirsten Gillibrand. So she would push that as her agenda. Now, as I mentioned in talking about previous candidate, there'll be whatever big idea that he or she has, that there are certain ideas that are good, that could be pushed as policies later on when the individual become president. But on the campaign trail, I don't know how much friction that pushing that as a rallying theme can have. Now, it sounds enticing, but it leaves a number of people out. People who are not close to become parent, people who are not there yet, or people who may not necessarily see that as a high priority. Yes, it would be nice, but is it such a priority that everybody would want that? I don't know, but not sure if that would be considered a rallying theme for Mrs. Gillibrand on the campaign trail. So we'll watch to see what will become of that, because obviously we want to know whether the constituents think it's such a great idea that they're willing to push Mrs. Gillibrand further into the process. Now, in June of 2019, this year obviously, in Florida, we're going to have the first debate for the first Democratic debate. That's when we're going to have an opportunity to see all those candidates that are now fighting to become the nominee to take on Donald Trump. That's when we will have a chance to hear them, to hear what they have to say, to see how they can attract the public, the audience, and how they would frame their ideas in order to distinguish himself or herself from the pack. As it stands today, Mrs. Gillibrand, as well as all others who are vying for that post, are not. There is no mudslinging. In fact, it looks like there is some sort of congeality. They're very nice to one another. Each candidate is saying nice thing about the other candidate, and there is no fight. But we know that's not the way it's gonna stay. You may recall 2016, for instance, when it began with Bernie Sanders hugging Hillary Clinton, verbally speaking, talking nice about the other candidate, until it gets to a point where there got to be some sort of distinction, or there got to be a line drawn, because we cannot continue that process all the way to the end. Someone has to fall. So that's when the mudslinging began. So now, whether Mrs. Gillibrand would have the opportunity to get to that point, we don't know, because we haven't seen her in action, because every candidate that we have featured so far, we have been only having their soundbite in terms of what they think, what they have in mind, and so on, but we haven't seen any one of them on the debate stage. And the first debate would give us a chance to see how they interact with one another, but more specifically, how each candidate tries to differentiate himself or herself from the pack. And that's when the real mudslinging would start, because once a candidate kind of try to bring down another candidate, either by shutting down an idea that the other candidate has or what have you, then only at that point that you would start seeing really a lot of shot being fired. And that's when you would say, welcome to American politics. Would Kirsten Gillibrand manage to stay above the fray? Well, so far we don't know what are her chances. Now there are certain some medias out there that already start giving opinion as to what they think each candidate would bring, how far they would go. Now we at the Fourth French, we abstain from doing any such thing. We only look at the merit of their big idea, but we will start giving a little bit of our own take on each candidate after the first debate. You are on the Fourth French program, the place for common sense. A small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. Please visit the People Branch YouTube channel for topics of topics as well as previous videos on the race to 2020. Join us tomorrow to discuss what are we discussing tomorrow? Juan Castro, that's the individual we will feature here on the Fourth Branch program. We hope you can join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. to talk about another candidate vying for the office of the presidency. Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our business, our only business, is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it. I hope this program was of some use, or at the very least provided you some information that can be used, well, to make decisions. If you have any question, comment, criticism, please do send it our way. We'd like to hear from you. Should you have a topic, a particular topic you would like us to talk about, let us know as well. We will research it. We will debate it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time. The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, where you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it is. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.
nigga.